Welcome to the Inside Syracuse Basketball Podcast. I'm Mike Waters. Today on the podcast, I'm joined by former Syracuse basketball player Terrence Roberts. Terrence talked about playing for the legendary Bob Hurley at St. Anthony High School, the knee injuries he suffered in high school and at Syracuse, and how he recently lost nearly 50 pounds after taking up cycling. Today's guest is probably one of my all-time favorite Syracuse players, especially when it came to interviews. Whether it was after a game or at a practice or anywhere, this guy was always so insightful, so funny, and sometimes you never knew what he was going to say. So I'm excited to have him on the podcast today. Terrence Roberts, welcome to the podcast, Terrence. It's good to have you.
Oh, thanks for having me, Mike. I appreciate it. It's been a while. It's been a long time.
It's been too long, way too long. I guess we've communicated a little bit, a text message here or a quick phone call there. But yeah, I got to admit, I really miss the days of having you in that locker room as a guy I could go to for the lead quote, the kicker quote, the funny quote, whatever I needed, you were there.
Yeah, I miss them days too.
You seem to enjoy that. Before I ask you a lot of other questions about it, high school and Syracuse and stuff, you always did seem to enjoy talking to reporters and the banter back and forth.
Yeah. I mean, I'm all for the media and stuff like that, as long as the back and forth is, is leading in a good direction. Mm-hmm. I'm all for it. I came from a program where we didn't really have a lot of media and stuff surrounding us, even with all the glitz and glamour that was with my high school program. It wasn't really, we didn't have a lot of media on us like that. Our coach did a really good job of sheltering us from that.
Well, let's go ahead and talk about that high school program and that coach that you referred to there. You played for the legendary Bob Hurley Sr. at St. Anthony in Jersey City, New Jersey. What was it like to play for a coach like Bob Hurley in high school?
It was absolutely terrifying. It was absolutely, because day in and day out, you never knew what you were going to get on the basketball court. He was an amazing person off the court. It's like a complete 180 from what he was in practice and in games, then like off the court, like at his house at barbecues and stuff like that. It was complete night and day. He was so intense on the court. I think that's where I got a lot of my intensity from when I played, is just watching him coach us and watching how intense he is and just really trying to match that. But he was very headstrong, knew what he wanted out of his kids, knew what it took for us to be successful, and we had to abide by that. And it was tough initially. It's tough for everybody initially. Well, once you kind of sophomore year, junior year, once you kind of get the hang of what he wants, man, it was pretty fun. You always end up missing it, for sure.
A lot of the programs these days at the high school level, especially some of the private schools or the prep schools, some of the facilities that are there now are just amazing for that level. St. Anthony was not that way. You guys were a powerhouse program, but tell me a little bit about what that facility was like there.
When I was there, we practiced at a place called White Eagle Hall. A lot of people know it from being in the USA Today, the front page of the USA Today, where I was sitting against a wall behind me that pretty much had asbestos falling on my shoulders at the time. But a lot of legends were made there in Jersey City, Newark, New York. A lot of legends was made there. We had a lot of N1 guys that would come in there and practice and play with us. And not everyone could get in that gym and play. You had to be cut from a different cloth to actually get in there and be able to survive a 2-hour session in that gym. But it was an amazing feeling. It really kept you humble, because you go to schools like CBA or pretty much any school in the surrounding area where all those guys had gyms, they had weight rooms and stuff. We pretty much, if you went in our basement of White Eagle Hall, which was a like assembly hall, and we had two basketball hoops, one that was tied to a balcony. We had another one that on the main rim was on the stage, and it was held to the ground by a iron radiator. So if you dunk too hard, that the whole thing went sideways. The radiator flew up in the air. So, you know, it kept us humble and hungry for your time that you were there, for sure.
Now, did you ever get on Coach Hurley's bad side there?
Everybody did. I started off on his bad side. Everybody did, man. When I came in, I was a 2003. I pretty much, it was like either go there or, you know, go somewhere and probably end up getting locked up. Coach Hurley was pretty much my probation officer my freshman year. So I got in some trouble like in 8th grade. He was like, yo, you either got to come here or or it's going to be bad for you. And I was like, oh, yeah, I really got no choice at this point. So I went there, and I mean, it changed my life for sure. Changed the direction of my life for sure. So he was, I think he was the stability that I needed when my parents weren't around. That's what I was very free, roaming. I still worked out, trained and stuff, but not as much as I probably should have been. And he was that stability that guidance and stability that I needed moving forward.
You know, I was wondering about the Coach Hurley's presence and influence when, as a high school sophomore, you sustained your first knee injury.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of kids at that age with that kind of an injury, you know, that could have been it. You could have just gone sideways. You know, how much did his influence there help you recover from that injury and get to where you were, you know, your junior, senior years?
I mean, from him, you know, coming with me to the hospital, to coming with me to multiple physical therapy sessions, making sure I was at all my physical therapy sessions. I would have to leave school, go to physical therapy, then come back, then still go to practice. So, you know, him constantly staying on top of me. And then before that point, there was for me, it was no weight room. Like I avoided the weight room and all the strength training at all costs. I was just all athleticism at that point. So that really opened up my eyes to my body growing and becoming a young adult and getting stronger outside of just playing basketball. Mm-hmm. And I think he saw that opportunity to help grow me in that aspect. And that's really where my career took off. I mean, when I got hurt, I ended up breaking my tibia, my patella, and had a torn ACL. There was 8 high-level Division I college coaches sitting on the sideline. And I just remember, I mean, going up, my leg exploded, and I'm just cussing, saying every cuss word possible. And I look over at them, and they're all just in shock. And a week after my surgery, I had an offer letter from every single one of those schools. I played well that day. I wasn't even supposed to play that day. When the run started, I was sitting on the front step, and my assistant coach, Ben Gamble, came in. He was like, what are you doing? I was like, I don't feel good. I was congested. I was feeling sick. And he was like, this is the perfect day to play. Like, we don't make excuses. Like, if you can walk, you can play. Obviously, it was a bad idea, but in the long run, it turned out very well. So, I mean, between him and between Coach Hurley and Ben Gamble constantly staying on me, making sure I was good, it was a really easy transition. I went down September 14th. I had surgery. I went down on the 14th. I had surgery on the 15th. I was back on the court practicing and playing before Christmas.
Unbelievable.
Yeah, I was young. I was young and drank a lot of milk. If that had anything to do with it, I don't know how I was able to come back so fast. But I started out the season with JV and then quickly made the transition to varsity and never looked back at that point.
Why did you decide to go to Syracuse? Because obviously coming out of St. Anthony and being as good as you were and on the teams you were on, you obviously had a lot of options. Why Syracuse?
I feel like there was a lot of balance there. I love the balance between the coaching staff and the players. Mike Hopkins was my main recruiter, and he gave me a lot of that Coach Hurley vibe, where it was like, I'm going to be on you. I'm going to be strict. This is what I want. This is what you got to do. I'm going to give you the keys to be successful, but it's going to be up to you to do what you got to do to get to that point. And Boeheim was almost the exact opposite, where he was like, this is what I expect. Either you do it or we find somebody else that is going to do it for you. And I respected that because it was like, it was almost the exact opposite of what I was getting from Coach Hurley. But at the same time, I was taking everything I learned from Coach Hurley and I was bringing it into Syracuse and trying to be a leader right off the bat. Like there was no turning back for me from that point. Like I came in as a freshman trying my hardest to be team captain on a team that just won a national championship. I mean, I think that toughness, installing that toughness into my teammates and to everybody else around me, I think that really helped me. That's why I picked Syracuse. It was just a fine balance between the players and the coaches, and I loved every bit of it.
What was it like? You mentioned coming to Syracuse as a freshman. You came in the year after they had won a national title. What was it like for you and your fellow freshmen like Demetrius Nichols and Mookie Watkins to come into a program where guys like Josh Pace, Jerry McNamara, Craig Forth had all just won a national title?
It was tough because I put a target on our back right away. I don't know if you remember the quote where they had, it might have been you or somebody else. They asked me, what are your expectations? Now that Carmelo Anthony is in here, you guys got big shoes to fill. And in my head, I was like, man, we got 4 guys that can be just as good as Carmelo Anthony. And I said this like before the season started. And that put so much pressure on everybody that it was tough. It was probably too much pressure than we needed at that point, but I didn't care. I thought we were all tough kids. We all played high school basketball together in AAU. So it was tough. The pressure definitely was mounting. And, we started off playing initially, but then, true to Boeheim's typical form, freshmen will start off playing and then they just kind of slide by the wayside towards the end of the season and towards middle of the season. And then if you're doing things the right way, he'll start to play you towards the latter part of the season. So we weren't ready at that point though. Looking back, physically, playing against certain teams. I look back when we were playing against like UConn with Penn Gordon and Emeka Okafor, and I'm just like, I look at those pictures and I'm like, Jesus Christ, I was nowhere near ready to be on the court with those guys at that time. But you just wanted that. Back then, you really just wanted that opportunity. You didn't really care. But I mean, we were there. We were 4 guys from, the tri-state area pretty much. And we just wanted our opportunity, wanted our shot to be great like the guys that were in front of us.
Your first 2 years at Syracuse, your freshman, sophomore years, there's another power forward in the program named Hakeem Warwick.
Yeah. Hakeem made it so tough on me.
Was he?
Tough. I just wanted him to go to the NBA. Just go to NBA, Hack. I love you, man. Go to NBA. Go to NBA. He loved Syracuse so much, just kept coming back. It's like, oh, come on.
Stayed all 4 years.
Stayed all 4 years.
So how many times would you wager that you were dunked on by the king of dunks there?
Honestly.
Oh, this is where you tell me you weren't, that you blocked everything.
No. Listen, you remember me. I went for everything. So I didn't care. But you got to ask, next time we talk to Hack, ask him how many times I dunked on him. So
okay.
He's probably got me a lot more times than I've gotten him. But usually when he gets me, I get him right back. Hack wasn't known for his defense. He's going to kill me when he sees this. But Hack wasn't known for his defense. Offensively, he was unbelievable. I watched Hack go up. We were in practice one time, and me, Demetrius, Mook, and Louis McCrowski, we're going at the first team, like really going at them. And, they start feeding Hack the ball. So we're just doubling off of him, doubling down on him. And, he takes a shot, he misses. He tips up his rebound, misses that, tries to tip it again, I block it. And then without even touching the ball, he goes up for the 4th one, and the ball just like sticks to his hand. And without even bringing it down, he just goes up and just dunks it. Just like, and then coach ends practice on that. And you're just like, seriously? Coach loved the embarrassing moments. When somebody gets embarrassed, Coach Weave and Coach Hop, they lived on that. That's why practices and stuff were so fun with those guys.
I think it was your junior year. Hack's gone. Good for you. But you hurt your knee again at that year. You were starting.
Yep.
I think it was your junior, or it might have been your
senior year. It was senior year. Senior year. The first year I got hurt. Yep.
And here it is again. That knee's going to come back up. But you only missed 2 games.
Yeah.
How serious an injury was this? I mean, because you started every game you played in, except the 2 you missed.
Yeah. So I mean, I really think this is when that St. Anthony's mentality kind of kicked in, where it was like, if I can get on the court, if I can walk, I can play. And the doctors were telling me, you got a torn meniscus. So this was actually in the opposite. This was in my left knee. This is when the left knee started giving me the problem. So, and I mean, I avoided it for almost 8 years before 6, 7 years. Because once you have a big injury on one leg, you're almost guaranteed to have something, whether it be minor or big, on the opposite leg at some point. I avoided it for 7 years. It got me on my senior year. I just went up for a rebound. One guy from Drexel he nudged me on my way down, which kind of took me off balance. And when I hit the ground, my knee kind of buckled, which gave me a bone bruise. And I thought it was. We got the X-rays and MRIs, which pretty much showed it was the meniscus, and they tell me, hey, you can continue to play. And he was like, the surgery for that, we can get surgery, but then you're going to be out like 4 weeks. And I'm like, 4 weeks is a short period of time. I know how I rehab. I've done it before. And I just decided, hey, I'm gonna continue to play. We're in a good position. We're starting to build chemistry. We're struggling at this point a little bit early in the season, but we're starting to build chemistry and get better. So I'm just like, if I tough it out, this may help bring the young guys along, just in case I have to take some time off. And this may help my mentality, help get my flow going. And man, every game, every practice, it was just a constant like rehabilitation. And I mean, what a lot of people don't even realize is I was getting my knee drained after every game, like filling tubes up that was that big, about that fat, just filling them up with fluid every game. Wow. Never really saying much to nobody, because that's not what I wanted to portray. I wasn't an excuse guy. If I was out on the court, I was trying to give my all. So a lot of people say, oh, every time he goes down, he's always grabbing something. Like, yeah, I mean, I kind of had the right to. It didn't hurt, but I literally played through it. I didn't practice much. Boeheim would not let me do a lot of the 5-on-5 stuff. It was like we was doing a lot of individual stuff, working on shooting, post moves, and stuff like that. What I can do to trying to keep the inflammation down while I continue to play. But throughout the year, it just continued to get worse. I kept hurting it again because I had that big bulky knee brace on, and it just wasn't as stable as it should have been. And I ended up having to get microfracture surgery after that, which kind of sent my career on the downslide after that point. But it is what it is. It was my choice, but you live with the decisions you make.
Yeah. That was your senior year. Going back to your junior year. Your junior year is Jerry McNamara's senior year.
Yes.
And late in the year, you guys got smoked by DePaul. Out at DePaul.
Yeah. I still hear that from people. Like, I don't even know how people remember that game still, but I was like once or twice a year, somebody was like, man, I remember when you was there. You guys got smoked by that one team in Chicago. I don't even remember their name, but yeah, they smoked us.
And that was just before the Big East tournament.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I think that
everybody
game
wrote you off.
Put us out. I think that game is what really, like you said, that game is what really people wrote us off at that point. Mm-hmm. But I mean, you play teams like that where, you got a target on your back. We were up and down all year that year. Up and down. I think we were on a nice little run, and then we had like a 1 or 2 game losing streak. And then we went in there with them, and that was one of those teams that if they get any confidence in the first 5 minutes of that game, they're going to run with it. And they did not miss any shots. Like I'd never seen at high school level, pro level, like, and I've played at every level. Like I've never seen any team collectively play as good as that team played that day. So I tip my hat to them. I was ticked at the time, but looking back at it, I was like, that was their time. I mean, they didn't do anything with it after that, but that was their time.
And
so
on
you
the
got to
flip
respect them
side,
for it.
we know like a week later, you guys go to New York for the Big East tournament. We know what eventually happened there in New York City that week. But going into it, did you, coming off of that, big loss to DePaul, what was the mood of the team? What were you guys talking about as you go into the Big East tournament? And of course, that first game is going to be in the quarterfinals against Cincinnati.
Honestly, I think by the time we got off that plane, we had already forgot about that. Honestly, because it was just like, man, it was a fluke. It was like they hit every shot. There was nothing we can do about it. So we was like, okay, now we got to get our swag back. So we had Jerry and Matt were the older guys, so we were kind of just trying to figure out how we can get everything back together. It's like, man, we just got to go out and play. Forget all the naysayers and leave all of that in the past. Like, I think we kind of, our junior year, because we had a successful, even though we lost in the first round my sophomore year, we had a successful year that year. So, our junior year was supposed to be a big year for us. And, with the up and down, we really got caught up in things like the media would say, like Gottlieb and all of those guys who don't really know what they were talking about because they're on the outside looking in. So, just trying to really figure everything out. And I mean, we did a good job at that point of just really just locking in and staying focused and working on our games and working on our team chemistry and building. And we all knew, like, we went into every game believing we was going to win. I don't think it was no game. Boeheim went into some games probably like, man, we finna get smoked. And we went into every single game. We went into UConn when they had Ben Gordon and Emeka Okafor, like absolutely sure we was going to beat them by 20 at UConn. Delusional, right?
A little bit, maybe.
A little bit, right? But that was my 4 years there. That was just our mentality the entire time. Like we didn't care. We knew, and we went into a lot of games with a target on our back. Nothing was going to be easy. Nothing ever was easy. So we just took that on and had fun with it.
Jerry hits that shot in that Big East quarterfinal against, I guess on the quarterfinals, actually first round.
Every single game.
They weren't even in the quarterfinals.
Game.
Yeah. He hits the one against Cincinnati, and it's in that post-game press conference that we get the Jim Boeheim rant of all rants, the whole 10 games and the Jerry overrated and stuff like that. I always wondered, did you guys have any inclination that or hint that he was going to go into that press conference and drop that? Or when did you hear? When did you hear about what Boeheim had said?
I was sitting next to him.
Oh, you were on the podium.
Yeah, I was on the podium.
You and Jerry. You and Jerry. Remember Jerry just looking at his shoes the whole time.
Yeah, and I'm looking at him like, yo. But I mean, it was a true statement. He did a great job of being a leader that year. And what people don't know about Jerry's senior year, his senior year was kind of like my senior year. He played with a bad hamstring the entire year.
Mm-hmm.
The entire year. He wasn't healthy the entire year. He was still going out, putting up good numbers, getting us involved, helping us put up good numbers. And again, they might have said we had an off year that year, but we went to the second round? No, we lost in the first round again to Texas A&M.
Texas A&M.
Yeah, we lost the first round.
Jerry couldn't go, really. Jerry was done.
The first 2 minutes of the game, he was done. That was it. And we needed that leadership to get us going, and we didn't have it at that point. So, Eric came off the bench, but Eric was the guy who piggybacked off of Jerry at that time. So if Jerry got off to a hot start, Eric was going to come in and do the exact same thing. Jerry didn't get off to a hot start, neither could Eric. So, I mean, the guards really couldn't get going that game. I think that's what kind of killed us. But for the most part, man, we kind of just jumped on Jerry's back and followed his leadership, and that's what was able to carry us to winning 4 games in 4 days.
Jerry was the focal point of that Big East tournament, and rightly so. I mean, he had a lot of big shots, great performance. But I think lost in that is the fact that the rest of the team came together then. It was in those games where, if you go back and look at it, you guys all of a sudden were putting 5 guys in double figures for like 3 games or 4 games in a row. 5 guys were in double figures. I'm not sure that happened all year. You and Mookie, Demetris, Eric, Matt Gorman's coming off the bench and making plays.
Right. We don't win that. We don't beat Georgetown if it wasn't for Matt Gorman. I had a terrible game. My knees was as big as a boulder. No, this was junior year. So I had a terrible game. Matt comes in and he's hot from start to finish. And I'm pretty much on the bench in my head the whole game. And Matt comes in and him and Jerry pretty much save us. So I mean, they did a great job of making sure we kept it together.
Yeah, I think it was, credit to Jerry, all credit to him, but that you could just see that team come together. Those games, it's the best 4 games you guys played all year long. You played them 4 in a row in 4 days.
And it was fun, man. And that's the thing about it. I think we were having so much fun doing it, from the smack talking to being at the Garden. You got guys running around, throwing balls in the stands and talking mess with the crowd. Like, it was just amazing. That was the best 4 days in the Garden that we had ever experienced. And it was just like, Boeheim was literally embarrassed at the way we were acting at these wins. Like, he'll tell you, he said in a press conference, I'm pretty sure he said, man, if we're gonna act like that, I'd rather not win. Because we was just crazy. We was just out running around having a great time. Like, we had never won games before, but it felt different to us.
It looked different from the outside looking in too.
Mm-hmm.
The one member of your recruiting class that didn't stay was Louis.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of stories about, how that whole thing, kind of went down. Any you can share with us?
I mean, it was tough. I'm not gonna share the whole story, but with that, Louis was probably the most passionate at everybody. And I wore everything on my sleeves, like emotions and all of that. Louis took that to another level. Like, he tried to double everything you were doing. So if you were getting up at 6, man, he would try to get up at 4. It was kind of like Paul. Like, he always tried to one up you. Paul Harris always tries to one up you. If he sees you working hard at 4 a.m., he's gonna get up at 2 and do it. You know what I'm saying? So Louis was kind of like that. And I think, it really came to a head when we played Rutgers at Carrier Dome. Mm-hmm. And when New York guys play against New York guys, and one of those guys goes off and the other one isn't playing as much as he wants to, it's hard for those New York guys to hold that emotion inside. So, it came to a boiling point. But if you remember, he stayed for the rest of the year. He played, stayed for the rest of the year. He played. We got over that really quick. Boeheim even got over it really quick. And we kind of moved forward from it, in a sense that, he just kind of he put it to the side, and he realized, I got to do it for my teammates. My teammates we needed him. We needed his toughness. We needed his defense. He was one of the best defenders we had, and we needed that moving forward. But I think him seeing Quincy Doobie, who was one of his rivals, go for 40, and then almost hit the game winner after I hit my shot. He almost hit a full court shot. If you remember, his shot rims out, his last shot, and that's where I'm standing there and I'm looking at his shot like, oh my God. He almost hits it with like 0.3 on the clock or something like that.
Well, so we got to stop right now. You kind of glossed over the story here, though. You made a 3-pointer to win the game. You made like 5 your whole career, right?
Yeah, but that
I didn't shortchange you, did I? It was
no. You good? That's very correct. But the thing was, what happened is, when I was shooting threes earlier in my career, like my freshman and early in my sophomore year, like Hack wasn't shooting threes and stuff like that. And then when I started shooting them, I made a few. All of a sudden, like I stopped playing. So I thought because I was shooting jump shots, that's why I wasn't playing. It wasn't because of that. It just I was a young guy, and it was the veterans time, right? So I stopped shooting, and then when I started to shoot again, Boeheim's like, "No, that's not what you do. Like we got shooters for that." So I'm like, "Okay." So I kind of had to take that out of my game, but I practice like that's something I practiced. So I wasn't shocked. Boeheim was completely shocked because that was like probably the first one I shot that year, if anything. But you see, like Demetrius, Josh, all of those guys would throw me the ball on the 3-point line. It was the fans and coach that would hold his breath, depending on if I would shoot it or not. So I wasn't. I knew it was good when it left my hands. I was comfortable. I would practice shots like that with Coach Weave, Coach Murphy. I would do all of the stuff. I put myself in the right position, so it wasn't a shock for me. And I was very aware of the time on the clock. So I knew the dude that was getting the ball had like 40. He had 42, I believe, because he has the dome record. He had 42, and I was like, oh, he has the ball again, but we're celebrating. Game isn't over. Luckily, he missed the shot. So, and I was there. What people don't realize is, although Rutgers wasn't that good, those were our rivals because those are all kids we played with in high school. Our entire team, we played with them in high school. Like they had 3 or 4 kids on their AAU on our AAU team. Me, Demetrius, and Mookie that played for Rutgers. And at one point, Rutgers was my first unofficial visit. We committed there. Like they sold us. Like it was 4 of us. 4 of us had committed there. And we were just like, oh, we all get verbals, not really knowing what we all gave verbals on the recruiting visit. So it was just like, oh, we're going here. This is glitz and glamour. This is, coming from St. Anthony's, we got 2 gyms, we got Cubbies, we get jerseys and shoes. Like what? We get Nikes? Excuse me? So it was like seeing that, we was like, oh, we're going here. And then, our coach, Coach Hurley talked some sense into me. And then once one person was like, yeah, I ain't going there. No one went there at that point. So, I mean, it was just a weird situation, but it worked out. It worked out well for everybody. At the end of the day, Louis ended up going. He left at the end of that year because Louis really didn't understand the whole recruitment thing. He felt like, they're bringing in guys to take my place instead of thinking, okay, they're bringing in someone that's just as good as me because when I leave, they need somebody to fill those shoes. That's how I thought about it. We all know that they bring in guys to take your place just in case it don't work out for you. That's what college basketball is about. You have to bring in the next best thing. You're not going to bring in somebody that's 50% your capacity. You know what I'm saying? So it's like some people understand that better than others. So I took it as a competition every year. Oh, you bringing in this guy? Okay, I'm gonna destroy him in practice. I'm gonna try to break a rim on him. Like I constantly went at guys. Older guys, younger guys, didn't matter to me. Carmelo came back. I tried to go at him unsuccessfully, but I would do it. And then I was smart enough to just make sure whenever Carmelo came back, just to be on his team in workouts. Exactly. So I left all of that up to like Paul and all of those guys. Yeah, y'all could go back and forth with Carmelo. I'll set all his screens for him.
So. After your career at Syracuse is over, you played a lot of places, and you played quite a few years of pro career. I lost track at about 10 countries.
Yeah,
your passport's got a lot of stamps in it.
Yeah, I went through 2. I went through 2 passports.
What was that like bouncing around the globe?
It wasn't good.
No?
If I can give the young guys any advice, if you can go somewhere, and play and you like it well enough that you think you can come back, but the money might not be a lot greater than it was the year before, take it and stay. because stability in this game is what makes your career last a lot longer. With me, I focused on coaching way too much. So, the whole getting used to, overseas, when you win a game, it's a team win. When you lose a game, it's your fault. Mm-hmm. So I really focused on like coming from playing under two Hall of Fame coaches. Now I'm playing for coaches that are ducks. They're just awful. These are YMCA coaches. Like if they come over here, they're YMCA coaches. They're awful. These are like, they could barely coach middle school kids. So it was really tough. And you know me, by my senior year, I had a lot of mouth. I wanted to be really successful. I thought I could be really successful. Mm-hmm. I wanted to be in the NBA. My injuries kind of took that down another route. But, you kind of learn as you go. So I just bounced around country to country just because, I never devalued myself my whole career. So I'm like, if I'm making $7,000 a month and I'm averaging a double and I'm doing good, and then you want to bring me back the next year at $8,000 a month, that ain't gonna fly with me. I'm out here playing 30, 40 minutes and you trying to pay me $1,000 more? Nah, I know those dudes out here making six figures, but that was the wrong approach. But there was nobody there to really tell me like, bro, that's the wrong approach. You got to constantly kill. And then one of these super teams in your league, you kill one of them on one of these games, and then they pick you up. That's when the money starts. You get on one of these EuroLeague teams. That's when the money starts. That's what Demetrius and Mook did when they went from the NBA and then went overseas. They played, stayed in the same country, and then they won championships. I bounced around way too much. When you bounce around, you just end up on one losing team to the next. You're playing good. You're having a great time. You got a lot of stamps on your passport, but man, them be lonely nights and boring days.
I know now you're living out in Los Angeles.
Correct.
The Jersey kid has gone West Coast on us. That's
Syracuse's fault. That snow corrupted me. I had to get so far away from the winter. I wanted no more seasons. Like today, it's raining for the first time probably this year. So, I mean, it's like I had to get so far away from the cold, like that, like in the seasons, like my knees just couldn't take it. Like I would be so depressed at home with all the cold weather and being stuck in the house. Like I just couldn't do it. I'm a very active person. I hike a lot. I do a lot of different things that involves me being outdoors. So I had to get back to that to get back to a healthy mental living.
Well, I know one of those outdoor activities is one you seem to really be in right now or into, and that's cycling. Every time I see you on any Facebook or other social media, it's another shot of you with this big group of cyclists.
Yeah. So, I initially started biking when the pandemic, like right before the pandemic. And I was on a mountain bike and then I'm chasing around these guys on road bikes. And somebody noticed me and was like, hey, you should come ride with us. And I was like, I don't have a road bike, but I'm always up for a challenge. So started riding with those guys and they're kicking my butt. And when I first started, I initially did it because I had retired from basketball because of my injuries and problems I was having with my health. And cycling really changed my life because I got up to about 289 pounds. So in about March of 2020, I was 289 pounds. Looked at myself in the mirror and I'm getting round. I am really round. I'm strong. I feel like I look good, but the mirror is telling me otherwise.
Wow. Okay.
And after that, I just, I got back in the gym and I started cycling. I did a ride and I got my butt kicked so bad that I just walked to my friend's house and I bought one of his road bikes. And then once I did that, it was curtains from there. The competitive juices really kicked in and it was like, the race season and for 2020 was canceled. And they were just like, you should start racing. And the more I picked it up, the better I got at it. I started to realize like, this is a lot like basketball. Like you have to train, you have to study, you have to, your vision has to be like, cycling is like being a point guard. You have to have vision, or you're going to end up a statistic with a really expensive broken bike. So I took that challenge and I've been very successful. And I mean, being a 6'10" guy that's out on a bike is, a lot of people won't come around you in a race because you create such a great draft. So I use my strengths and my weaknesses to my ability, and constantly getting better and looking forward to, growing in the sport and continuing to get better. I just got to find a better bike, a bike my size.
I was
That's
about
the
to say, that
toughest
must
part.
be hard to find a bike to fit a 6'10" frame.
Yeah, I mean, the one I have now it's older. It's a 2018, and everybody now is on the newer bikes, which are a lot more stiffer. Stiffer is a lot better for racing and stuff like that. So it's, for the most part, it's tough to find them, because once the pandemic hit, cycling was really the only thing that everybody in the US could do to, kind of stay healthy and, not go insane by staying in the house. Everything is sold out. So like you can't find bikes. You go on any website right now, it might be like one or two where you can find a bike that is either going to fit you or what you're looking for. Everything's sold out to like late 2022. So it's like everything you find is like people selling bikes that bought bikes during the pandemic. Now the pandemic ended and they got to pay rent. They got to sell that $6,000 bike to pay rent for 2 to 3 months. So, and what a lot of people, Mike, don't realize, cycling is for sure the most expensive sport you can pay. Hands down. Hands down.
Why is that?
These bikes are expensive.
Oh, wow.
Like the bike. So I have one bike now that I had to get the seat post custom made. That bike's about $12,000. Yeah. Wow. I didn't pay for it. I got it gifted by Cannondale because the bike that I did pay for, which was $4,600, which I talked them down from $69. That frame cracked when I was doing a race earlier in the year. So they sent me, and that frame was a 2018. So they sent me a 2020 version, which is what the Rafa EF team used on the Tour de France. So they sent me that bike. That was the only bike they had in my size.
Wow.
So I got a major upgrade on that part. And then it's another bike that, I was fortunate enough that, I say fortunate enough, but I have good insurance. So I ended up getting, in LA, everybody was stealing bikes because that was the wave right now. Bikes were selling so much, people were just stealing bikes and selling them. So I ended up getting 3 bikes stolen in a matter of 4 months.
Oh my God.
Yeah. 3 bikes. I got 2 mountain bikes stolen and 1 road bike. And insurance cashed me out probably $16,000.
Oh my God. Now, what kind of distances are these races that you're in?
So the races are usually, they're called criterium races. So usually like 4 or 5 corner crits run by, approved by USA Cycling for the most part. So, I mean, it really depends. We usually go by time. Okay. Each course is usually a mile. We only had one course that was bigger than a mile. It was like probably 1.6 miles. And that's usually considered a circuit race. But usually we're doing 4 corner crit races running for 50 minutes at anywhere between 25 and 35 miles an hour.
Oh, it's fast.
Yeah. Yeah. You have to be really strong and really conditioned. Right now, honestly, I'm in the best shape in my life that I've ever been. In high school, college, professional, I'm in the best shape of my life.
What are you down to?
Last time I weighed myself yesterday, I was 230, but I got all the way down to 221. And then I was like, okay, I got to get back up a little bit. So I started to bulk and started to lift a little bit more weight. So, but to be fast and to be, you got a lot of these road races where you got these really steep climbs and stuff. And I'm a pretty fast climber, I won't say fast climber, but I'm a pretty strong climber. Mm-hmm. So, and that's the opposite of what people think when you're tall. You usually, super fast downhill, super fast everywhere else, but you're super slow uphill. But, like I said, I take on challenges. So that's what I really trained to get good at. And, that was the main thing for me. You know, you have to prove everybody wrong, because no one's looking at you like, hey, you know, this guy's going to be really good at cycling at 6'10". They come in the races and they look at me like, oh yeah, he's going to be terrible. There's no way he's going to be fast, which makes sense because all of these dudes are like between 5'5" and 6'1", and they're all like under 200 pounds and they're really fast. But if there's any downhills in a race, I have an extreme advantage. So, and as my conditioning gets better, it gets worse for those guys.
Terrence Roberts on a bicycle, folks. That's amazing stuff. Hey, listen, Terrence, we've gone way over what we had talked about doing, but I just couldn't stop.
Yeah,
it's so great catching up with you.
It was a pleasure.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast.
I appreciate you having me, Mike.